Assalamu alaikum, dear students. How are you? I think you are very fine. We are going through a very complicated period. So you have to be mentally and physically fit, and you have to continue to study properly, because this bad time to disappear once, and you have to go back to your normal life. So study properly and utilize the period accordingly. Now today we are going to discuss about the novel Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. So in my former class I told about his birth, place, time, his family, his work. Today I am going to discuss about three major things. One is theme, another is style, and the other is settings. Both the theme and settings are interrelated. So first come to theme. You just look at the script, you can write it, you can note something from here. The darkness of the title. The novel stands for unknown and unknowable. So there are many examples of unknown and unknowable. So I am just quoting few important sentences. So you go to chapter 2, turn over, and 6 or 7 page of chapter 2, page number 6 in my text. I am just quoting from the text. We pretended deeper and deeper into the heart of darkness. It was very quiet there. At night, sometimes the roll of drums behind the shading of trees would run up the river and remain sustained faintly, as if hovering in the air high over our heads, till the first break of day. Whatever it meant, war, peace, or prayer, we couldn't tell. The dawns were heralded by the descent of a chill stillness. The woodcutters slept, their fires burned low. The snapping of a twig would make you start. We were wanderers on prehistoric earth, on an earth that wore the aspect of an unknown planet. So you see, there are ample examples. You have to read the novel properly, or you cannot discover them. Number 2, or point 2, regarding the darkness of the title, is opposite. Darkness is opposite of the progress and enlightenment that dominated the 19th century. Actually, the disintegration of Ottoman Empire gave birth to another powerful empire, the Russian Empire. And the British Empire were spreading all over the world. 1857, the Indian subcontinent came under the rule of the Queen Victoria. So, it was also a time, it was an era of scientific advancement, new advancement in medical science, which made people's life much easier than before. But scientific advancement in medical sciences couldn't eventually cure the ills of the world. By the end of 19th century, a deeper pessimism had engulfed the world. Science had turned out to be a sham or deceit. It failed to portray or reflect human happiness. the world was not getting any better, especially in the colonies. Actually, the people were enchained. They were suffering. They were burdened with the overload of their work. So, I will give many examples of the colonization later on. Before that, we focus few of Conrad's queries. Was the darkness something that was simply a part of the universe? Something that could never be defeated? Did it come from within human beings? Actually, everywhere we find the darkness is inherent and predominant. So darkness stands for the interior of the jungle, the inner station, the unknown, the impenetrable, the primitive, the evil, to Marlowe's own comment, one of the dark places of the earth. Something abominable. To Marlowe or Conrad, the forest, the creek, the mud, the river seemed to beckon with a dishonoring flourish before the sunlit face of the land, a treacherous appeal to the lurking death, to the hidden evil, to the profound darkness of its heart. So, turn over the page, in fact the chapter 2, and page 4 of chapter 2 in my text. You can search it in your text. I will quote from the text. Going up the river was like traveling back to the earliest beginnings of the world, when vegetation rioted on the earth, and the big trees were kings, an empty stream, a great silence, an impenetrable forest. The air was warm, thick, heavy, sluggish. There was no joy in the brilliance of sunshine. The long stretches of the waterway ran on, deserted, into the gloom of overshadowed distances. On silvery sandbanks, hippos and alligators sunned themselves side by side. The broadening waters flowed through a mob of wooded islands. You lost your way on the river as you would in a desert, and butted all day long against shoals, trying to find the channel, till you thought yourself bewitched and cut off forever from everything you had known once, somewhere far away in another existence, perhaps. So, you can find the isolation, you can find the evil, the unknown, the primitiveness. Now, the important aspects or important subject matter or topic of the novel is Kurt's own black heart. Kurt is the major character of the novel. I am going to discuss about Kurt's and other characters in the forthcoming class. But today, for the darkness, the symbol of darkness, I am going to tell something about Mr. Kurt's heart, Kurt's own black heart. The heart of every human being may be or can be compared to that of Kurt, or perhaps the heart of greedy European plunderers, poachers, or slave traders. Above all, it is a tale of exploitation. The theme of darkness is a theme of colonization, black people contrasted with the whites here. They both fall victim to darkness. At the very beginning, most probably 3 or 4 pages into chapter 1, I'm going to quote. There is root causes of civilizations. Rather, there are root causes of civilizations. Sorry, colonizations. So, they had settled. They had sailed from Deptford, from Greenwich, from Ark. The adventurers and the settlers, kings, ships, and ships of man, changes, captains, admirals, the dark interpolers of the Eastern trade, and the commission generals of East India fleets, hunters for gold or pursuers of fame. They all had gone out on that stream, bearing the sword and often the torch, messengers of the might within the land, bearers of a spark from the sacred fire. What greatness had not floated on the eve of that river into the mystery of an unknown art? The dreams of man, the seed of commonwealths, the germs of empires. So here we find a sharp contrast between the mystery of the unknown. There is hint of darkness, and there are hope also. So, but after few page, or after one page most probably, we find a sharp contrast between the Roman colonizers, between the modern colonizers. Actually, there are similarities between them, but in modern age, the aspect of colonizing as many places as they could became very grotesque, became very horrible. The conquest of earth, the conquest of the earth, which mostly means the taking it away from those who have a different complexion or slightly flatter noses than ourselves, is not a pretty thing when you look into it too much. What redeems it is the idea only, an idea at the back of it. Not a sentimental stance, but an idea, and an unselfish belief in the idea, something you can set up and bow down before and offer a sacrifice. So you see, the theme of colonization is very much prevalent and predominant in the novel. So you just turn over few pages forth, and you will find another stark reality of the condition and countenance of the slaves, especially African slaves. So page number 18 of chapter 1, in my text, I quote from the text, "They were dying slowly, it was very clear. They were not enemies, they were not criminals. They were nothing earthly now, nothing but black shadows of disease and starvation, lying confusedly in the greenish gloom, brought from all the recesses of the coast, in all the legality of time contracts, lost in uncongenial surroundings, fed on unfamiliar food. The second became inefficient and were then allowed to crawl away and rest. These moribund shapes were free as air and nearly as thin." So you write the whole passage you will find the inhuman treatment, the proper inhuman treatment, savage treatment, inconsiderable treatment by the white colonizers. So now the meaning of darkness has got few more aspects, because Conrad put it hazy on purpose for us. So according to Marlowe or Conrad, as a narrator, the meaning of an episode was not inside like a kernel, but outside, enveloping the tale, which brought it out only as a glow brings out a haze. To Conrad, the story or the tale of darkness is inconclusive also. Conrad doesn't declare, he hints and suggests. He doesn't explain or delineate anything exactly that disturbs or moves or excites you. His hints or suggestions make it difficult to explain the full meaning of certain symbols, especially the symbol of darkness. So you have to dig deeper into the novel to understand the meaning. Conrad has left the options for us to understand the meaning of darkness with our own consideration and knowledge. So there are some running sub-themes which are also important. The best way to fend darkness off lies in the notion of work. Keep working. Be busy, active or agile, involved in hectic activities that will help you to forget darkness. So involving yourself in some sort of activities always is a very positive thing for Conrad or for Marlowe, the protagonist. So again, you move to chapter, or you have to move to chapter 2 to discover it. So page number 7 of chapter 2, in my text, I am going to quote it. I had to mess about with white lead and strips of wooden blanket, helping to put bandages on those leaky steam pipes. I tell you, I had to watch the steering, the circumvent those snags and get to the tin pot along by hook or by crook. There was surface truth enough in these things to save a wiser man. So you know, what saved Marlowe from wilderness many times. The most important things or most important sub-themes is restraint or self-restraint. Before the attack during the journey upriver in chapter 2, you will find some fascinating sentences. Conrad's eloquent discoveries into his conscience, the necessity of restraint or self-restraint. Here I quote, I looked at them as you would on any human being, with a curiosity of their impulses, motives, capacities, weakness, when brought to the test of an inexorable physical necessity. Restraint. What possible restraint? What is superstition? Disgust? Passions? Fear? Or some kind of primitive honor? No fear can stand up to hunger. No passions can wear it out. Disgust simply doesn't exist where hunger is. And as to superstition, beliefs, and what you may call principles, they are less than chaff in the breeze. Don't you know the delivery of lingering starvation, its exasperating torment, its black thoughts, its somber and brooding ferocity? Well, I do. It takes a man all his inborn strength to fight hunger properly. It's really easier to face bereavement, dishonor, and the predation of one's soul than this kind of prolonged hunger. Sad but true, and these chaps too had no earthly reason for any kind of scruple, restraint. I would just as soon have expected restraint from a hyena prowling amongst the corpses of a battlefield. So, here you find an ample example of the necessity of restraint. And along with restraint comes determination or resolution all the time. In every crisis, Marlowe shows determination and resolution. Even at the time of rescuing Mr. Coutts, when he actually opened himself to some sort of attack to the Africans. And another important sub-theme is unreliability of high ideals or words, because there are plenty of discussions among the narrators and among the characters, and everybody actually likes to talk high ideals, but they cannot implement it, or it was impossible for them to implement it because of the wilderness, because of the obstacles, because of the savagery, because of their limitations in the jungles. So words can lie, but actions cannot lie. That is the message from Joseph Conrad. And some illusions are necessary for survival, as Marlowe lies to Coutts's mistress at the end of the novel. Had not Marlowe actually lied to mistress about the utterance of Mr. Coutts' last word, she would have been fainted, or her whole world about Mr. Coutts would have turned upside down. Another most important sub-thing is efficiency. As Marlowe declares, what saves us is efficiency, the devotion to efficiency. So you have to be very efficient. Someone has to be very efficient in the jungles, because the journey, it was a very long, tiresome journey for Marlowe as well as for other sailors or other explorers. Now, I will focus on the setting of the novel, which is actually very much interrelated with the theme itself. The place, most of the action in Heart of Darkness is set in the jungles of the African Congo. The tale itself is narrated by a sailor aboard a pleasure boat at the mouth of the Thames River outside London. And at the very beginning of the novel, it begins like that. The Neil, a cruising yawl, swung to her anchor without a flutter of the sails and was at rest. So, you see, the effect of darkness is imminent, very imminent after that particular sentence, because both the place or spot and time of day are significant. If we look at the time, it is sunset. The tale turns gloomier, images of darkness get more and more pervasive. Actually, it was pervading into the thought of human mind. The evening grows gradually darker and Marlowe finishes the tale in the night. The time of sunset is a time of transition. It's twilight, a time of uncertainty, doubt, and distraction. So, the pervasiveness is very much inherent here. So, the transition from light into the twilight zone and finally into darkness is very much important, very much symbolic. On the other hand, London is a symbol of great civilization, but for Marlowe, it is a strategic place from which he induces us to hear his experiences of the wilderness. In fact, for an English sailor, the mouth of the Thames would mark the point between the light of civilization and darkness, the unknown aims of the earth. At the same time, he is dealing with the darkness of city and jungle. As we have already mentioned, Marlowe's adventure takes place in the Congo Free State, an area that at that time was the personal property of Leopold II, King of Belgians. At that time, people all over Europe were talking about Leopold's philanthropic and civilizing activities in the Congo. Especially Leopold was actually spreading it all over the Europe. But by 1899, at the time of the publication of Heart of Darkness, inhuman treatment of the African natives came into light. Conrad, who served as skipper of a Congo steamer himself in 1890, knew the true condition. The much of the gruesome detail is drawn from observation by Joseph Conrad. Though the river became an active trading station for Marlowe and for Conrad, a mighty big river resembling an immense snake uncoiled with its head in the sea, its body at rest, curving afar over a vast country. It fascinated Marlowe as a snake would a bird, a silly little bird. So Marlowe hints something very ominous here. The Congo River on a map looked like a snake to Marlowe. That means here is an indication or an association what happened in the Garden of Eden. So the snake has been a symbol of evil. The journey is a forbidden fruit. Then we are going to say something about style. Style is also very important because you will find this novel very much absorbing. If you miss even a comma, even a semicolon, even a full stop, you will unable to understand the content of a particular sentence. So style is very important for you to discover the particular language of Joseph Conrad. Though he was born in Poland, actually Poland was a part of Russian Empire that particular period. Later it became part of Soviet Union, but now it is part of Poland, a European country. But he later established as an English novelist, a very successful English novelist. So you have to read everything properly. You have to carry an inquisitive investigation into the language to understand the meaning.